Welcome everyone to another Ref Brandon and the Todd Family YouTube video. Wherever you are, whatever you may be doing, thank you so much for making Ref Brandon and the Todd Family part of your day. We always greatly appreciate it. I was on here today and I said I'd be back sometime later on today. Well, that time is now. I feel like it's a good time to come on here because I know a lot of people like NFL, especially Sunday night football. Good evening, Kevron. Glad to have you here as always. And all the Sunday afternoon games are complete. And we've got about 45 minutes or so before the Sunday night football game starts. I want to talk about not all, but all the meaningful college football games from the weekend. If you jump on here live, feel free to leave a comment just like Kevron did down in the comment section below. Make sure to give the video a like and a thumbs up. And if you have not subscribed yet, please do so and share the video on all social media platforms. And before I talk about the scores from all the meaningful games from over the weekend, I want to say that Friday, probably about 11 o'clock or so, I was working, and one of the guys I work with just walked by and he stopped and said, "So, about the 3 games tomorrow, what do you think, Brandon?" I said, "Oh, I think Georgia Tech beats Clemson. I think Georgia beats Tennessee. And I think Vanderbilt beats South Carolina." And sure enough, Georgia Tech beat Clemson, Georgia beat Tennessee, and Vanderbilt beat South Carolina. And I mentioned that earlier in the week here on the channel that I was surprised that as of last Sunday when the early point spreads, came out, Clemson was favored, Georgia was favored, and the Gamecocks were favored when I probably would have picked Georgia Tech. I probably would have picked Vanderbilt if I was a betting man. I'm not sure about Tennessee, even though Tennessee had outplayed Georgia in the first 2 games of the season. For whatever reason, that rivalry is no longer a rivalry, and Tennessee just can't beat Georgia. But I thought those 3 teams would win, and they did, so it felt good to be right, even though I hated that I was right about Clemson. Clemson just played like dog doo-doo, so I had no reason to believe they were going to beat Georgia Tech. I'm not convinced Clemson goes 8-4 this year. They got to show me something that they ain't shown yet. But on to the games. We'll start with Thursday night when NC State beat Wake Forest. Hey there, Jess. Glad to have you here. NC State beat Wake Forest 34-24. I'm doing fantastic, Austin. How are you doing? It's good to have you here on this Sunday evening. NC State's quarterback, C.J. Bailey, is fun to watch. But, outside of him, I'm not sure what else NC State has, but C.J. is definitely fun to watch. Arizona on Friday night beat Kansas State 23-17. Also Thursday night, Houston defeated Colorado 36-20. Hey there, Bagel. Glad to have you here. And I think Colorado is now down to their 3rd string quarterback. I did not get to watch the race yesterday, Austin, because I had wrestling last night. But of course, thanks to Tubi having the NASCAR channel, I'll go back and watch it. But I didn't get to watch it live last night. But I'll watch it tomorrow when I'm home. And Bagel, I think it's your first time being here, so feel free to give the video a like and a thumbs up. And if you haven't subscribed, feel free to do that as well. And I mentioned on the last year about Colorado here on the channel about, people talking about how good of a job Deion was doing. I said, well, don't get so excited because, we'll never know how good of a coach Deion could be because, he doesn't do a whole lot of actual recruiting. His team, year in, year out, is basically transfer players. And one transfer class might work out and one might not. This transfer class is not going to work out. But as far as recruiting players, he doesn't do that. As far as developing players, he doesn't do that. His whole entire roster every year is basically transfer players. And you just can't live like that because you don't get a chance to actually get to know your players. You don't get a chance to actually recruit them, bring them in, help coach them up, help develop them. All that's out the window. And some players may get on campus and realize they just don't like each other, but they don't know it till football season because they ain't been there. So, I tell people, calm down on Dion. Last year, 2 years ago, might have been okay, but you're not going to bring in 85 transfer players every year and it work out. It's just not going to happen. New Mexico beat UCLA, and I bring that score up because UCLA is now 0-3. Hey there, Penguin. Glad to have you here. And Penguin, I think it's your first time here on the channel. If so, thank you for being here. Feel free to give the video a like and a thumbs up. If you have not subscribed, please do so. But UCLA is now 0-3, and they've got one game in the next couple of weeks that they might win. If they don't win that one, I think they're going 0-12. They are absolutely hideous. And hey there, Jace, glad to have you back here from Germany. Thank you for stopping by again. It's Sunday night here. I'm not quite sure what day and time it is in Germany, but nevertheless, glad to have you here. But UCLA doesn't only lose to New Mexico, they get demolished 35-10. LSU defeats Florida 20-10, and here on the channel, I think LSU is the very first team that I previewed back in about April, and I thought they could have a pretty good season. I picked them to go 10-2, and so far, I've seen nothing to make me change my mind. Their defense has improved a lot. Their offense so far isn't what it was last year, but we always know, everybody knows when football starts, the defense is always ahead of the offense. So LSU's offense will get better as the year goes on, but their defense is much improved. With their defense being like it is now, they're not going to have to score 45 points a game to win. They could probably score about 30 most games this year and win. And you can keep the rain in Germany, JC, because I swear, here where I am, I feel like it rained every day for 3 weeks straight. So keep that rain over in Germany. And Oregon wins again, but this time it's a little bit closer. They defeat Northwestern 34-14. Yes, Austin, I had SWA last night. Miami, all over South Florida, and I work with a guy that's a huge Hurricane fan. Hey there, Matty J. Glad to have you here. Thanks for stopping by on this Sunday. And I talked to him yesterday at work, and I told him, I said, dude, I really think your Hurricanes have a legit shot of winning a national championship. And he said, man, I just don't see it. I said, dude, I know that Cristobal is not a game day coach. I know he can't coach on game day, but eventually the talent level is going to be so good that his pathetic coaching on game day is not going to matter. And Carson Beck has a legit shot to win the Heisman, and Miami has a legit shot at winning a national championship. And I think y'all have the best offensive line in the country. And, he doesn't want to see it, and I understand that because he's been a Hurricane fan for a long time. And, since they have the tradition they have, the history they have, every year they get built up to get on the field, and it just ain't there. It's there by name and name only. But this year, Miami's actually really, really good. Georgia defeats Tennessee in overtime, 44-41. Tennessee had a shot at the end of regulation to win it, and they missed the field goal. Then in overtime, Tennessee gets a field goal. Georgia gets the touchdown. But so far, Tennessee's got the better of the trade between Nico Iamaleava and Joey Aguilar, because long season, but so far Joey Aguilar has played really good with the balls. And not only is Nico Iamaleava terrible, UCLA is absolutely awful. And, he got the short end of the stick all because his mom and dad, mainly his dad, thinks that he's worth so much more money than what he's actually worth. And that's the bad part about paying players, which I've said from the get-go is a bad idea, because you want to pay these players, but you don't put a limit on what they can make. It's like having a job. If somebody has a job and you don't tell them what their peak pay rate is, every week they're going to say, I need more money. I need more money. I want more money. I need more money. What are these football players? This is a job to them. So you tell them, hey, you can make money, but don't tell them how much. They're always going to say, I want more. I need more. I want more. I need more. What do you expect? But Nico should have known he's not that good because the way these quarterbacks are getting paid now, if he was worth $10 million a year, Tennessee would have said, hey, man, if that's what you want in order to keep you here, we'll pay you that. But Tennessee said, no, you're not worth that. And guess what? I don't think he's worth that. I'm not saying Aguilar's worth that kind of money, but he's looked a whole lot better in that system so far than Nico Iamaleava ever did. Nico played good against good teams or bad teams, but against great teams, he was awful. But Aguilar's looked good in all three games for the Vols so far. Texas beat UTEP 27-10. That game, really, as far as being on the schedule, wasn't much. It's just the Texas offense is missing something. I don't know what it is. Their defense is so good, just like it was last year. You know, they're not going to need 40 points a game to win, just like LSU's not. But Arch Manning hasn't been good, but the whole Texas offense just looks out of sync so far this year. Texas A&M beats Notre Dame by 1 point, 41-40. Vanderbilt all over South Carolina, 41-7. Now I know here on the channel before the season started, it may have been the very last team I previewed. I said I had the Gamecocks going 7-5, only because they were 9-3 last year. But a lot of the games they won last year, you know, they won on fluke plays or, you know, fluke drive or lucky breaks. And typically when you have games like that in football, the way football usually works is one year, if all those games go your way, the next year they don't. And to me, the Gamecocks brought back basically, for the most part, the same offense, same defense, not the same players, but I didn't really see anybody that they gained or lost either side of the ball that made a huge difference. So if you're basically bringing back close to the same kind of talent and you're going to be both on the same sides of the ball, all those breaks you got last year, you don't get this year. Plus, they gave Mike Shula play calling duties on offense, and I just don't like Mike Shula at all. Mike Shula's a guy that if he helps recruiting, he's fine. If he's a quarterback coach, he's fine. But if you got him calling plays, he's terrible. And hey there, DoorDash. Dave, or if your name is Mike, hey there, Mike. Either way, glad to have you here on this Sunday night. So I picked the Gamecocks to go 7-5, and I think I'm more convinced than ever that they're going to be about 7-5. Georgia Tech beats Clemson 24-21. It's so funny. I walked in church this morning, and about 4 or 5 people were all about, oh, your team got beat. And I was like, I don't care. You know, I've said here on the channel numerous times, it doesn't matter to me. When Clemson got beat yesterday, as soon as the game ended, I was like, oh, well, try again next week. I just can't let a football game or any sporting event determine my mood. It's a game. It doesn't affect me. If you win, great. If not, great. But I'm not going to change over a game. I'm just not going to do it. But I'd already convinced myself on Friday that Georgia Tech was going to beat them. So when they got beat, I wasn't surprised. They were like, oh my gosh, I thought we had this game. No, I thought you were going to get beat. Now, I will say the offense looked a lot better. The first 2 weeks, we had 8 or 9 3-and-out drives on offense. I think they had 2 yesterday. And I don't know about the final stats, but I know there was a time there in the third quarter that Clemson actually had more offensive yards than Georgia Tech did. But, you know, we drove the field one time, missed the field goal, drove the field again, and Klubnik threw a pick at about the Tech 5-yard line. So yesterday the offense did look a little better. I know 21 points in the grand scheme of things isn't great, but they did look more fluid on offense. And I've had about 5 people already, if not 10, say, what's Clemson's record going to be this year? And I'll say, the way it's looking, probably about 7-5, because I think Florida State's going to beat them. I think SMU's going to beat them. And I think Louisville's going to beat them. They're like, well, what about Dabo? And I'm like, Dabo's not going anywhere. And I know that's the way the world is nowadays, that you coach somebody, And as soon as you have a bad season, oh, fire the guy. You win 10 straight national titles, you have won 3-9 season, oh, he's got to go, fire the guy. But Dabo's done so much for Clemson, he's not getting fired. Not now. Now, if you have 3 or 4 straight 7-5 seasons, maybe. But we're talking about a team that just made the playoffs last year. We're talking about a guy that wins at least 9 games every year, which never happened at Clemson before Dabo came. You don't bring on a guy that gets you to where you've never been before in the history of your program, and you have won 7-5 season, and you fire the guy. Dabo's not going anywhere. Now, could there be changes outside of Dabo among the coaching staff? Absolutely. I think C.J. Spiller should have been fired about 12 years ago. But, outside of C.J. Spiller, anybody else could be on the chopping block. I don't know. But as far as Dabo, he's not going anywhere. Now, if the bottom falls out and you go 2-10, you might consider it. But when you win at least 9 games a year, which you've never done before, and you've won 2 national titles and played for 4, and you have won 7-5, 8-4 season, you're not firing the coach. Not at Clemson. It's not happening. Iowa State defeats Arkansas State 24-16. So you got to give the Fighting Butch Joneses credit. They hung with the Cyclones of Iowa State. And hey there, Ima. Glad to have you back on this Sunday evening. Ole Miss defeats Arkansas 41-35. And Ole Miss actually started another quarterback yesterday. I want to say his name was Trinidad, I believe. So, had they given up on Austin already? I don't know. But he didn't start yesterday, so I guess we'll find out, what happens down the road. Alabama all over Wisconsin, 38-14. And when the year started, I had Bama going 9-3. But I said, Bama doesn't have the players they've had in the past, which they don't. But I also said that I'm not a big Ty Simpson fan, but so far, Ty's proven me wrong. I mean, Bama's struggling because they can't stop the run on defense, and they can't run the ball on offense. So when you can't stop the run and you can't run, you're in trouble. But Ty Simpson's actually played very, very, very good. He's impressed me so far. The Bama team as a whole has not, but Ty Simpson has. Memphis over Troy, 28-7. I want to see how deep Memphis goes before they lose a game. West Virginia comes from behind, defeats Pittsburgh in overtime in the Border War game. I want to say, if memory serves, watching that game, Pittsburgh was up 24-14 or 24-17, one of the two, when the fourth quarter started, and then the Mountaineers tied it and won it. In overtime, USC defeats Purdue 33-17. So USC's defense actually looks like it's a lot better than what it's been the last couple of years, which will help them tremendously, because if they don't score 75 a game, they don't win the last 2 years because their defense has been so bad. Old Dominion defeats Virginia Tech 45-26. So not only do I think Brent Pry gets fired when the year's over with, I don't know how Brent Pry wasn't fired at halftime last night. You lose to Old Dominion by 3 scores. I mean, that's pitiful. I mean, Old Dominion's a good football team, so if they beat you 28-26, that's one thing. If they beat you 45-26, and Brent Pry was not fired at halftime, I don't know how that happened. Tulane defeats Duke 34-27. Hey there, Daniel. Glad to have you here on this Sunday. Hope your Sunday is going fantastic. California defeats Minnesota 27-14. It's good to see the Cal Golden Bears fans being excited for a change because they've been so bad at football for so long. But I was impressed last night watching that game. I want to say it was Dave Fleming. If not, I apologize. But I want to say Dave Fleming was the one doing play-by-play on this game. And California's quarterback, last name is about 75 letters. And nobody tries to say his name. He's one of those quarterbacks that has 3 names. So most folks just call him by his initials because he has 3 names, or by his number. But Dave Fleming last night just came out and said his name about 5 times that I heard, and just said it with ease. And I was like, how are you saying that? Nobody else is saying this guy's name, even trying to, and you're just saying it like it's nothing. But I want to say it's Sola Pola Tule. I believe that's correct. And then we had Stanford finally getting in the win column, defeating Boston College 30-20. So any thoughts on the games from this weekend? Please feel free to drop them down in the comment section whenever you watch the video. If you have not subscribed, please do so. Share the video on all social media platforms. Tell your friends about the channel. Tell your family about the channel. And if anybody you know likes any kind of major sport, whether it's football, baseball, basketball, NASCAR, or wrestling, we talk about it here on the channel. And coming up sometime later on in the week, we'll talk about all the games coming up in week 4 of college football. Hard to believe that week 4 begins coming up here on Thursday night. Now, this past Thursday, we had NC State and Wake Forest, which is, an ACC game, not a bad game. But I can recall when I was in high school and shortly after high school, the Thursday night college football game, if it wasn't the biggest game of the weekend, it was one of the biggest. And it was a game you always looked forward to, whether it was ACC or a Big Ten game or a Big 12 game. It didn't matter. You knew it was going to be two good teams from a power conference playing each other. So you looked forward to Thursday night football. And I couldn't tell you how many games I watched on Thursday night back in the day that were down to the wire thrillers. I want to say one year Oklahoma was top 5 and lost to Iowa State. And I think that was on a Thursday night 25 years ago, somewhere along in there. It may have been Oklahoma State that lost to Iowa State. But anyway, I'm just giving examples of big-time games on Thursday night. But now that the NFL game is on Prime, and most people have Prime, and NFL is so much more popular than college football. College football kind of takes a back seat. And I want to say the game this Thursday is Charlotte and Rice, I believe. So still a game on Thursday night, but just not one that you really want to watch unless you're just a die-hard football fan. And I hate it because back in the day, man, you looked forward to Thursday nights. Now there's a game on, but if you want to watch NFL, fine. But if you want to watch college, more often than not now, the Thursday night game ain't worth watching because most of the big-time power conferences don't want to chance it because you want all the eyeballs to be on, your team and your game. But with NFL game on, NFL being so much more popular, you're going to get beat probably by 5 times in the ratings column. Then it makes your team and your conference look bad because you had a Thursday night game and you only had 1 million viewers because the NFL game is going to have 10 million viewers. So that's why the Thursday night games now are usually either a group of 5 game or an FCS game or 2 lower tier teams in a power conference. You're not any longer ever going to see a Thursday night where both teams are ranked. Back in the day you did, not now. But let's go ahead and get our dad joke of the day in here. I'm going to start collecting highlighters. Mark my words. And that does it for today's Ref Brandon and the Todd Family YouTube video. Until next time, it's Ref Brandon saying, just like in pro wrestling, life can be over by the count of 3. Tell your friends and family how much you love them. Bye.